this is Lee back once again for another video, and yes, I'm back. I've been watching, and, not watching every minute of it, but following the NXT promotion, formerly known as, I believe it was Florida Championship Wrestling, developmental territory for WWE over the last several years. Anyway, mainly I've been interested in them, not because, the overall product is that fantastic. I mean, there is Ring of Honor, there is Lucha Underground, for these smaller time wrestling, even if you don't watch TNA Impact, now on Pop TV. But NXT has interested me because it has attempted, at least it presents itself as giving the female wrestlers more of a chance. There was this WWE, campaign they started called Give Divas a Chance. Of course, it had its own problems. What's a diva, really? Someone who complains and creates drama, like Total Divas, sitcom, soap opera, reality TV show. Very annoying to, many of us. Certainly to myself, I prefer action, I prefer interesting storylines and likable characters, hateable villains, but not just this sort of cattiness and kind of petty, annoying. Why can't the female wrestlers have feuds and competitions like the male wrestlers? Why does it always have to be something silly like, you stole my man, or, your makeup's ugly, or just why? Why the silliness? Anyway, NXT, took that Give Divas a Chance, I think, boost that WWE was working on and tried to focus on their female talent and showcase them. But they've been doing this for some time. Of course, most remember, Brittany Knight, when she went to NXT and became Paige, and eventually went to the main roster of WWE, and many felt that her character changed. Many of these wrestlers become, as some podcasters, I may be stealing this from Solo Monster, is that they become domesticated. Or was it Don Tony? I don't know, one of those guys. But anyway, they take these wrestlers, these independent wrestlers who do all these amazing moves and have these incredible storylines and feuds and competitions, and they bring them on television and they become kind of a generic character. They kind of change their name. They give them more of a generic look. You see this with many female wrestlers. They slim down. They get either blonde or red hair. And they kind of wore more revealing, form-fitting outfits. And they wrestle a very generic style. They're slowed down. There's fewer moves. The matches are much shorter. The angles are a lot more like I said, is sort of the reality show versions, and it just becomes kind of generic, kind of watered down. Of course, many of these female wrestlers, I'm sure it's great for their careers because they go in there and they bust their behinds, in the independent circuit, making hardly any money and racking up injuries. And they go on television and they can do a lot less work and get a lot more money. So I don't blame them. But at the same time, as a fan, as someone who wants to watch wrestling to be entertained, as this, fantastic sport, spectacle, is rather bored by this. So the female wrestlers are not really treated like much on television. They're treated sort of like, the backstage, valets, interviewers, the girlfriend of the wrestler, kind of like a manager. They come out and maybe wrestle for 2 or 3 minutes and that's it. And unfortunately on NXT, even though the quality of the female wrestling is above what you generally see on Raw or SmackDown or even TNA Impact, although Impact has slightly better opportunities for the women than WWE, a little more violence, they sort of tend to the, kind of risque stuff a little bit, but not too over the top. Which of course is unnecessary. I mean, you do have your male wrestlers that, kind of your, Rick Rude types, your Joey Ryans, but not every male wrestler has to be like that. There's many different characters. So you, with your female wrestlers, you just have much more limitations that are placed on them artificially. So NXT gets away from that a little bit. And I think many fans respond to that positively and say, NXT women are so great. They're so amazing. If only they knew what the women were like in Japan or on the independent circuit. I feel Mexico it's kind of a mixed bag. Lucha Underground, they really only have two female wrestlers on the roster. There's in the more recent season of Lucha Underground, there's a couple more that have been added, but I'll save that for another video. NXT. I've kind of gotten off track because I've been gone for a while. Well, NXT has especially interested me in the last year because we've had many wrestlers from Shimmer that I know from Shimmer anyway, of course, because these independent women coming from many different promotions to compete in Shimmer, probably the largest, all-female promotion in North America. But anyway, you have many of those wrestlers appearing on NXT, even if it's just, one match, one short match to job to some, put over some new, a mainstay wrestler. But others have become mainstays. So I want to talk about some about those. Now, I covered some matches that were done back in September when Kana, the world-famous Kana, made her debut as Asuka. And she beat up Dana Brooke. Now, of course, she actually had a match and beat up Dana Brooke on the pay-per-view. Before that, she had her contract signed and so forth, and was sort of, bullied by Emma and Dana Brooke, these two wrestlers, who, of course, are the, stuck-up, bullies from NXT. And I was not familiar with the two of them before, but, I appreciated the way they interacted, and I think that Kana made them look, built them up, made them look better as villains. So there's this rivalry going. Now, prior to this, also Bayley, who of course was known as Davina Rose in her time in Shimmer and other independent promotions, and of course she kind of put a ponytail on top of her head, and she got these tassels coming off of her arms, and put on more makeup, and had super fans in the audience, little girls that would scream and cry and cheer her on. This one little girl always kind of front and center with her parents, and she had these inflatable men that would kind of wave their arms like a used car lot whenever Bayley would come on, in bright colors, and she'd hug people. I think they really pushed her and made her character something very exciting. Of course, I wasn't a big fan of hers in Shimmer. I felt she was just kind of this little girl, kind of in over her head. But as a character, that's fine. But she's really been given a chance to shine, and I'm surprised they allowed her to do so much on television. But I'm glad. If you look at the WWE Network, that's what you'll get. So I'll have more to say about that. But Bayley as the champion now recently, and then Sasha Banks, who had a rivalry with her, and they had this 30-minute match, which great. Good on NXT and WWE through them to allow these women to really shine, and to really demonstrate their abilities, because really they can do 99% of what the men can do on television. Certainly they don't have the upper body strength that the male wrestlers have, the large size, but generally they, if they're allowed to have a diversity of look, diversity of personality, character, and diversity of wrestling style, and given more than just short matches and flimsy storylines, they can do more. So I'll say more about these different matches one by one. I would really like to go through. Of course, I've got November, October, November, December, January, February, and soon March. With this weekly show, it's hard to keep up. But I just want to note some standout performances and sightings of Shimmer talent on the. So I took some notes down here, and I just wanted to share some of those impressions that I had over looking at some of the different Shimmer matches. Back in, let's see, September 30th, I commented on this Emma and Dana Brooke versus Casey Cassidy and Jessie McKay, who were renamed Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, respectively. It's about a 7-minute match. The previous episode, of course, I commented on this in my other video, Sarah Dobson, Crazy Mary Dobson, had a 2-minute match, basically was squashed. But then, let's see, you had Bayley versus Sasha Banks, 30-minute Iron Woman match. Iron Man match, but the fans chanted Iron Woman at NXT TakeOver, which was the pay-per-view after that. And I actually need to watch that 30-minute match. They keep showing highlights of it. It was kind of one of the matches of the year. But you had your Asuka debut against Dana Brooke, very memorable. And actually, her actual match was at the TakeOver, and I have seen that match. It was a short match, but it was well done because, really, when you look at, if you study Kana in her matches, especially her American matches, she really doesn't have that many moves. Basically, an arm bar, a kick, kind of a off-the-rope missile drop kick. Let's see, kind of a sleeper hold, and a variation of the crossface chicken wing. I think they call it the Asuka lock or the Kana lock, and that's basically it. The 5 or 7 moves of doom, they always say, but she uses them effectively in her personality. You believe that she has a more realistic style, like a kickboxer or a MMA fighter, an actual wrestler. So it works. It can work with a character, and of course she is able to do more, but that's more her style. Now you had in October 14th, 2015, Evie appeared, and she jogged to Nia Jax, and she acted scared. Now, of course, Evie, we know, can do a lot more than what she did in this match, but she definitely put over this new woman, this large woman, and of course, Nia Jax, many commented on her outfit and said, oh, her outfit isn't that good, it's not very flattering, she doesn't look very powerful, she just, she looks confident, but her outfit was silly. But, not to be goofy, you can have a great wrestler who is, presentation needs work, but in the episodes following Nia Jax, she definitely had, better outfits, and she looked tougher, closer to a Jessica Havoc, although not quite that extreme, not quite the punk, neo-Nazi looking female, but definitely someone powerful, someone scary, someone who can do damage. And yet, she talks backstage, and people try to manipulate her, get her to be the muscle, the bodyguard type. So let's see. October 21st, you had Asuka versus Billie Kay. Now, Billie Kay would become kind of a recurring wrestler. Of course, this is none other than Jessie McKay. Jessie McKay, everybody's favorite girlfriend in Shimmer. Now, of course, she had, she was kind of a happy-go-lucky, girl next door who could be strong and tough, pretty, kind of a ballerina-esque, physique, very tall, very slender. She formerly had a personality where she was actually kind of like the bad girl, kind of a dirty, naughty, mean, nasty person, who would steal your boyfriend. She was bad. She wasn't, just this nice person. So I think this is bringing back a little bit of that Jessie McKay as Billie Kay. Some of her, she was bullied by, I think, Dana Brooke, calling her Billy Goat. Now, and Billie Kay just kind of talked about how she did a little short promo and said, well, I have the longest legs, and so I'm going to take everybody down. It was very silly. Sometimes I wonder if these women are purposely, given these gimmicks to make sure that they don't become very popular themselves, and that all the popularity goes on to their opponent, or if they genuinely thought, well, this is what I've got to work with, so, and just thought it'd be funny. Who knows? But I appreciate Jessie McKay. I mean, when you look at her, you think, oh, she probably can't really do anything, but she is actually quite an impressive wrestler. And, you had a short match, and Asuka basically made short work of her. But I was glad to see her in getting some extra exposure on television. Of course, it's kind of a mixed blessing, because on the one hand, I definitely want to see these women, succeed. I'm glad, that they're achieving their dreams by going on television, and eventually appearing in WWE or TNA, one of these mainstream wrestling promotions. But at the same time, I'm certainly miss seeing them on the independent scene, because most of the time when they go in, they won't be able to wrestle independently anymore, or they'll be too busy or injured. And of course, if they become, as the other podcasters say, domesticated by these other promotions, that kind of waters down, diminishes, what they accomplished before, because I miss those old characters. So, let's see. You had October 28th episode of NXT. Dana Brooke defeated, spoilers, Shazza McKenzie. Now Shazza got a huge pop, as they say. The crowd really cheering for her and for everyone she was with at the last Shimmer show that I was at. That volume 79, I believe. But anyway, of course, there's more to come. But she had sort of previously been sort of this lovable goof, along with Veda Scott, of course, who has now become a villain. The two of them were kind of like, kind of childish, kind of giddy little, schoolgirl types. They were really trying their best, but they were just such underdogs. Well, she was sort of added kind of a head roll. She kind of tossed her head like, I know I'm pretty. What do you think of that? A little bit of sass on top of her kind of, oh, I'm innocent, little person. So she added that, and I figured she did that as kind of a part of this transition into, attempting to, enter the mainstream stage where, every female wrestler has a little bit of a flirtatious side. I guess part of the thought is, well, this way we'll get, more fans on our side, because it's like, oh, she's blinking her eyes at me, that's cute. Whatever. But anyway, Dana Brooke just destroyed her, defeated her. Poor girl, you felt sorry for Shazza, thinking that, this bully is going to take her out. Then you had a Kaylee Ray. Amazing. Another Shimmer wrestler coming in to fight Nia Jax. And of course, Nia Jax, is a much bigger wrestler. Of course, Kaylee Ray, no stranger to fighting larger wrestlers, but was ultimately defeated, spoiler, by Nia Jax. And of course, people commented Nia Jax looks better in this new outfit. So, again, very short matches, generally squash matches. I'd like to see some of these pay-per-views. It's enough to make a person want to get the WWE Network just to check these out. But I wish they'd put more on television. To be fair, many of the men's matches are also very short. They typically have one, long match, and the rest are very short. A lot of backstage segments. Kind of low budget, but actually a little more high budget than most independent promotions. Now, moving on to November 4th, we have Asuka versus Cameron. Yes, and I'll have more to say about this match shortly. Then we have Eva Marie versus some blonde. I'll have to look that one up, actually. Now, Eva Marie is one of these divas from the WWE, and I've been listening to some different podcasts and people really complaining, saying that she's terrible, that she's not a good wrestler, that she sort of represents all that's wrong with, other than the Bellas, of course, all that's wrong with WWE, divas division. These women who are, so much is focused on their looks and not enough on their wrestling ability and their character, and they make so many mistakes in the ring, you can just tell that, their opponent is really trying to make them look good, and it's not really working. So, I saw some of this when Eva Marie came out, with the striking red hair, and she is a very attractive woman, by modern standards, very beautiful, and that, she plays that up as much as possible, but the fans still booed her. Of course, she has a villainous character, she's coming in to try to, screw over the other performers, and tries to get Nia Jax to do her dirty work, and that's kind of how it goes. But I was still intrigued. I think you do need a few characters like that, you need a few Amber O'Neills here and there, to fulfill that role of the sort of stuck-up snob who thinks that she can get whatever she wants just based on her looks. Just like you have, your Rick Rudes and your Joey Ryans, you have all kinds of characters. the main thing to do with a women's division is not to have too much of the sameness. Because you wouldn't do that with a men's division. You wouldn't have all the men have pretty much the same character and pretty much the same physique and pretty much the same outfit and pretty much the same style. That would really get boring. It would really be dull. Who would care who wins or loses because they haven't done anything to make these men unique. And you even see that in boxing. You see that in mixed martial arts. You see that in the Olympics. Television tries to tell a story. They try to interview the athletes. They try to find out what is it that this person is like behind the scenes. What have they sacrificed to get where they are? What is it that drives them? What are they really like? What are their accomplishments? And so real life tries to do that. Why can't wrestling do that? So I think there needs to be more. NXT is certainly not faultless in this area, but I do think that they are showing many fans that more is possible. It's just that most fans don't realize how much more is possible. If all you watch is American televised professional wrestling and maybe a little bit of Mexican wrestling, you're not going to see women at their best. You really would have to watch Japanese wrestling, especially in modern times, of course, but the golden age, during the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, 1992, it was just incredible. And it wasn't as if this was just, two people just kind of standing there trading punches. You had, so many crazy acrobatic moves. You had character. You had, amazing outfits, sizes, looks, everything in between. It's like the women's wrestling in Japan in the 90s, early 90s was as diverse and as entertaining as anything that the men were doing in North America. Sometimes better, I would say. And that's really what drew me in as a fan, and I think that is going to draw in more fans. Now, of course, that is, that costs money, it costs time, it takes talent. Certainly there are risks involved because that sort of fast-paced, high-flying style of wrestling, requires a lot, and, injuries can pile up. These women who are just kind of having these very short matches and kind of doing a couple slaps and maybe a couple cartwheels and a submission hold, really don't have to worry much. They can still get injured, but, they're not, jumping off the top of cages and going through tables and that sort of thing. But at the same time, I think the fans are missing out. They're not really seeing what women's wrestling could be. And NXT is doing better with that. And Lucha Underground is showing, that you can have, different types of female performers, in the mix with the men. And so it's showing a little bit more is possible. But women's wrestling on television is not nearly what it could be compared to what is out there. If you watch these independent shows, if you go to Japan, if you see this, even some of these other promotions like, Bellatrix in the UK, just things like that. They're these small, hard to find, promotions. They really do it right. And NXT, I think, for their part, is doing well. They need to continue to do more, I think, not just in the pay-per-views, but also on the show. And I think the main WWE product could really learn from that style. So if the managers, if the promoters, if the people in charge who are allowing, this little ant farm experiment, this petri dish of NXT to do that sort of thing, if they could build on that in their main show, I think a lot more fans would start watching again. You'd draw in a lot more people, because wrestling has become somewhat stale. Many have said in the last decade or so, if not 15 years. Really, you have the big, hardcore explosion with ECW and all that, but, there really just hasn't been much since then. There have been so many attempts to kind of revive, these invasion angles, these New World Order stuff, but you really just haven't had much, and women's wrestling has been around, but it just, it can't go back to the days of, like, Sable and, that sort of thing. It has to be something new, and that new freshness is out there, and you just have to bring it in. And so I think they're doing the right thing by bringing in, Sarah Amato, Sarah Del Rey as a trainer for, NXT women. You have, these Shimmer talents coming in and helping, put over the new talent, but also, training and maybe some of them going over and continuing on. But it's really a disservice just to have them be domesticated and kind of dulled and, watered down. So hopefully it continues to get better, and I'll say more about, more of these matches as I see them, especially standout ones. But for now, NXT is more just like spot the Shimmer wrestler, and seeing Asuka and Bayley, doing their thing. They're really the mainstays. And some of these other wrestlers, they just kind of pop in for a bit and they're gone, but it's nice to see them. So, those are my thoughts for now, and maybe I'll have more to say about NXT in the near future. So thanks for watching. Goodbye.